Hi, I'm Sarah, and today I'm going to talk about how to revert. Reverts aren't known as being a popular trick that is high on the list of things that everyone wants to learn, but if you watch any pro skater long enough, you'll see them revert because reverts are just a great and stylish way to turn you and your board around 180 degrees. Now, as always, being just really comfortable on your skateboard is really important to learning any trick. But for this one in particular, I do suggest knowing how to pivot 180 degrees before trying this trick. And I say that because I actually tried to learn how to revert first, and I just ended up learning how to pivot or kick turn instead. Anyways, let's get right into the trick.
A revert is basically a pivot done where your board rotates 180 degrees and your trucks don't leave the ground. So the board and you rotate without losing contact with the ground, which is why this trick is done easier on a smooth surface. In order to revert, you basically lead the motion with your shoulders, build up tension in your torso, put some pressure on your front foot, and then let that built up tension unwind, which brings the board around.
So let's break down the physics of this trick. First of all, we need to keep in mind that the goal of the frontside revert is to bring the tail of the board around in front of us while keeping all four wheels on the ground. Now, a good place to have your feet for a revert is with your front foot slightly angled over the front bolts, with the ball of your foot or toes in this little pocket right here, and your back foot on the tail or over the bolts. Now, depending on the size of your feet and the size and shape of your board, this will look different, but you'll see why this foot positioning is important in a moment. When I do this trick, my back foot doesn't do as much as my front foot, so it doesn't really matter where I put it or where you put it. It should just be comfortable, so I like to keep mine on the back bolts.
Now, you do not want your front foot on the nose for this. If your front foot is on the nose, you're more likely to end up lifting those back wheels by accident and turning the revert into a pivot, but you don't want that. So I suggest keeping your front foot right over the bolts.
The reason you want your feet set up like this is because right here in this little pocket is kind of the ideal pressure point for a revert. Pushing down with the ball of your foot right here creates pressure between the board and this wheel. Now, that pressure increases the friction of this wheel while it reduces the pressure and friction of the other wheels. So while you slightly pinch this wheel into the ground, it's kind of pinned there momentarily, and it becomes a pivot point where the other wheels and therefore the board can rotate freely around it.
It's kind of like pinning the corner of a sheet of paper to your desk and rotating it around that axis. You create a little axis where you hold the paper, and the rest of the sheet rotates around that point.
Now, this is not a hard push, it's actually a very light pressure. After winding up your shoulders, you just need to put a little extra pressure over that front toe. And as your body unwinds, the revert works like magic. Like I said, you don't want to put too much pressure down or you might end up doing a kick turn. But just experiment and go slow to see how much pressure you need to add to this little zone.
The last tip is about your back foot. Now, it does not do much, but it's still important. When you put pressure on your front toes, the trucks might want to come up a little too much. This was a really common problem for me. Luckily, the back foot does not have to push hard or even work against it. It just needs to sweep around with just enough pressure to keep the trucks against the ground, but not too much pressure as to pin the wheels back to the ground. it's kind of a hard balance to reach, but I like to think of it as a little drag, almost like a dance move. I twist my shoulders, press on my front toe, and drag my back foot in front of me to release that built-up tension. Now, to practice this move, I suggest warming up with tic-tacs and then pivots. Having these down will make learning this move so much easier. And then, before you even try to revert, I suggest trying one other thing. It looks silly, but you can do the revert without your board. You can practice winding up your arms, turning your shoulders, pivoting on that front foot, and even dragging the toe of your back foot without your board. And once you can do that really comfortably, you can definitely try it on your own setup.
And that really is the hardest part. Finding the Goldilocks zone on how much pressure to put where is the hardest part, but also where this trick really shines. My revert went from this happy little accident to a controlled skill, so I really understand that it takes a lot of time to get there. But while you're out skating and rolling around, try a few of them. Try them in both directions with both feet, and I'm sure you're going to get them. So as always, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you got something out of it, and I hope to see you next week.